When Ethan looks at Lena across the kitchen, the realization doesn't arrive as rage or panic. It settles like a cold weight behind his ribs. She smiles at him, soft and unguarded, her hand resting unconsciously on her stomach as she thanks him for breakfast. In that moment, he understands the full shape of the betrayal. This isn't just about another man or a single secret. It's about control. Lena has been living in a future she designed alone, while Ethan remained trapped in a past he thought they shared. Her ignorance of his discovery becomes painfully clear in her ease. How freely she hums, how naturally she reaches for him. And suddenly, Ethan knows the truth would shatter her calm, but keeping it intact gives him something rare. Silence becomes his shield. Knowledge Ethan's power is fragile, almost imaginary, yet it's the first thing that belongs solely to him since the truth surfaced. Lena believes the story is still hers to tell, her timing intact, her choices untouched. She doesn't see the way his eyes linger longer than before, measuring instead of loving. Ethan realizes that confrontation would only return control to her. Tears, explanations, carefully selected truths. But now, for once, she is exposed without knowing it. Every word she speaks is unedited honesty. Every affectionate gesture is uncalculated. Ethan absorbs it all, storing details like evidence, not for revenge yet, but for understanding the depth of what she stole from him. This quiet awareness sharpens his grief into focus. He is no longer reacting. He is observing. And that shift, subtle and visible, changes the balance between them entirely. His only remaining lever as Lena talks about ordinary things, the weather, a doctor's appointment, what they'll do this weekend. Ethan realizes how dangerous this knowledge truly is. It isolates him. He is now alone inside their marriage, carrying a truth too heavy to share and too sharp to forget. But within that isolation, clarity forms. He sees how carefully Lena constructed her silence, how easily she excluded him from decisions that reshaped his life. The fact that she doesn't know he knows means time is finally on his side. He can decide when the story breaks. And how. That awareness doesn't comfort him, but it steadies him. Ethan lifts his coffee, meets her eyes, and smiles back, practicing performance she's been giving him for months. Inside, he accepts the grim truth. This is not the end of his marriage. This is the beginning of a reckoning she never planned for. Ethan Cross learned early that love could vanish without warning. His father's disappearance left behind a quiet house and a mother who survived by saying nothing, by enduring instead of confronting. From her, Ethan inherited restraint, an instinct to hold pain inward and keep promises outward. As an adult, that translated into a rigid moral code. Loyalty wasn't emotional to him. It was structural, like the bridges he designed for a living. When doctors confirmed his infertility years into the marriage, Ethan absorbed the diagnosis without protest. He offered solutions that required sacrifice, adoption, fostering, patience, because consent mattered more than pride. He never wanted Lena to feel trapped by biology. What he didn't see was how his calm acceptance looked like surrender to her. To Ethan, honesty was love. To Lena, it slowly became proof that he didn't fight hard enough for the life she wanted. Lena Cross had always measured life by milestones, career growth, curated happiness, visible progress. Motherhood wasn't just a desire. It was an expectation she believed the world owed her. Each failed attempt chipped away at her self-image, turning grief into bitterness she couldn't name out loud. Publicly, she remained supportive, smiling beside Ethan in waiting rooms and family gatherings. Privately, she scrolled fertility forums late at night, absorbing language that reframed her pain as injustice. Words like genetic strength and prime years wrapped themselves around her resentment until blame found a home. Ethan's infertility became, in her mind, theft of time, identity, legacy. The more she listened to voices celebrating dominance and biological entitlement, the more she convinced herself that love didn't require permission. She wasn't betraying her marriage. She told herself she was correcting a mistake biology had made. From the outside, the cross marriage still looked intact, shared dinners, polite affection, occasional laughter. But intimacy had turned procedural, timed to calendars and ovulation charts, stripped of desire and heavy with disappointment. Every failed cycle added silence instead of conversation. Ethan thought space was kindness. Lena felt it as abandonment. When she began referencing strong lineage or genetic compatibility, Ethan brushed it off as internet nonsense, never imagining it could justify a moral boundary being crossed. That dismissal cost him everything. The betrayal that followed wasn't impulsive or physical. It was ideological. Lena removed his consent, his agency, his right to choose fatherhood on honest terms. The stakes now stretch far beyond the marriage. Legality, identity, and morality collide. Is a child born of deception still sacred? And can love survive when biology is used as a weapon rather than bond? Ethan accesses Lena's email late at night, not out of jealousy, but necessity. Her laptop is warm, still logged in, the glow of the screen illuminating words he was never meant to read. At first, the messages feel clinical, appointments, payments, anonymized subject lines, but then the language shifts. A private fertility broker. Preferences listed like items on a menu. Height, IQ, athletic history. Psychological dominance markers. Ethan's hands tremble as he reads Lena's assessment of her own husband. Emotionally safe, but genetically weak. The phrase lands harder than any insult he's ever known. This isn't a moment of desperation. It's deliberate erasure. She didn't just step outside their marriage. She redesigned it without him. The donor's name appears again and again, Marcus Hale. A man chosen not for love, but for traits Ethan was never allowed to compete against. As Ethan reads deeper, the structure of Lena's plan reveals itself with chilling precision. Marcus Hale isn't anonymous. He's a former college athlete, financially unstable, willing to sign a contract that skirts legality and ethics alike. There are clauses about silence, deniability, and non-involvement. Lena's intent is unmistakable. The child will be presented as Ethan's through a carefully staged IVF narrative. No confession. No choice. Ethan would raise another man's child under a lie engineered from the beginning. The realization hollows him out. He doesn't cry. He closes a laptop, walks to his car, and retches into the gutter like his body is rejecting something toxic. He dials a lawyer, listens to the ring, then hangs up. He calls his mother next, but when she answers, no sound comes out. Words fail him completely. Sitting in the driver's seat, Ethan understands that outrage would only make him predictable. Confrontation would give Lena time to reshape the narrative, to cry, to justify, to turn his pain into something manageable. Silence, however, keeps the truth sharp and intact. He realizes that knowledge is no longer just a burden. It's leverage. Choosing not to speak isn't surrender. It's strategy. Ethan begins to think like an engineer again, mapping consequences, calculating pressure points, legal paths, timelines, proof. He will not expose himself to accusations or manipulation without preparation. For the first time since opening that email, his breathing steadies. The point of no return has already been crossed, but the direction forward is now his to choose. Ethan wipes his face, starts the car, and drives home to a woman who believes her secret is safe. Unaware that the ground beneath her has already shifted as weeks pass, Lena's demeanor shifts from careful to careless. Pregnancy seems to armor her, and with it comes a quiet cruelty she no longer bothers to hide. She makes small remarks about Ethan being too soft, jokes about how stress affects real men, then denies them moments later, accusing him of being sensitive when he flinches. The gaslighting is subtle, surgical. Ethan doesn't argue. He listens. At night, he records conversations, his phone hidden face down, capturing tone and timing rather than volume. He prints emails, screenshots contracts, and stores them outside the house. Every step is methodical, the way he designs load-bearing structures, anticipating collapse before it happens. The man who once believed honesty alone could save a marriage now understands documentation is the only language that survives courtrooms. Lena mistakes his silence for weakness. In reality, she's giving him everything he needs. Sophia Reynolds doesn't react the way Ethan expects. She doesn't gasp or frown when he lays out the evidence. She simply listens, eyes steady, mind already sorting facts from emotion. Her office is calm, intentionally so, like a place built to slow people down. She explains the legal risks without drama. Consent laws, paternity presumptions, how quickly truth can be buried under narrative. Then she leans forward and says something Ethan won't forget. Revenge feels good. Justice lasts longer. The warning lands hard because it names a temptation he hasn't admitted to himself. Sophia advises patience, timing, and restraint. One emotional outburst could cost him parental rights to a child he didn't consent to creating. Ethan leaves her office understanding the stakes have crystallized. This is no longer about exposing Lena. It's about surviving what she set in motion, that Lena's mistake is arrogance. She meets Marcus one last time. Convincing herself closure is harmless. Ethan follows from a distance, watching them sit across from each other in a quiet cafe. Marcus doesn't look triumphant. He looks hollow. Later, Ethan approaches him outside, voice controlled, hands visible. There is no violence, only gravity. Marcus breaks quickly. He admits Lena told him Ethan was aware, supportive, even eager, another lie layered onto many. He didn't know he was erasing someone else's life. Regret flickers in his eyes, genuine and useless. As Marcus walks away, Ethan feels the pressure tighten. The child is coming. The lies are multiplying. Every person involved is now trapped inside Lena's narrative, whether they chose it or not. One impulsive move could brand Ethan as unstable, vindictive, everything Lena needs him to be. So he does nothing, and that restraint becomes the most dangerous thing in the room. The baby shower is wrapped in pastel colors and forced joy, the kind of celebration that exists more for photographs than truth. Friends laugh. Family claps. Lena stands glowing at the center, one hand on her belly, delivering a speech about unconditional love and destiny. Ethan watches her calmly, the way one watches a structure moments before collapse. When he stands, the room quiets out of habit, not respect. His voice is steady, almost gentle as he begins. He doesn't accuse, he presents. A donor contract printed cleanly, emails time-stamped and highlighted. Details of illegal clinic practices spoken plainly, without venom. Confusion ripples through the guests. Lena's smile freezes, then cracks. She laughs nervously, says this isn't funny, that Ethan is overwhelmed. He doesn't argue. He presses play. The room fills with Lena's recorded voice, calculated, dismissive, undeniable. The truth arrives without shouting, and that makes it devastating that Lena's composure unravels publicly, thread by thread. She denies first, quick, instinctive, then cries when denial fails. Her voice rises, searching for sympathy, but the evidence keeps speaking over her. Ethan names the donor aloud, Marcus Hale. The name lands like a drop plate. Whispers erupt. Phones come out. Someone gasps. Lena lunges for Ethan, begging him to stop, insisting this is private, that he's humiliating her. Ethan steps back, untouched. He explains, calmly, that privacy was a courtesy she never offered him. The recordings continue, her language about genetics, dominance, weakness. Every word redraws her image in the eyes of people who thought they knew her. The celebration collapses into chaos. Chairs scrape. Friends argue. Family members stare at Lena as if seeing a stranger. This is an exposure fueled by rage. It's exposure fueled by precision, and it leaves nowhere to hide. When the noise peaks, Ethan raises his hand, not to command, but to finish. He announces his filings clearly: divorce, fraud, and legal disestablishment of paternity. The words are clinical, irreversible. This is a twist no one saw coming, not exposure, but consequence. Lena screams then, stripped of performance. You were never enough. The room goes silent again. Ethan looks at her, not with anger, but with clarity earned at great cost. Enough is a choice, he says quietly. You chose something else. That's when the gravity of it all finally lands. This isn't a marital argument. It's a legal, moral, and social reckoning. Someone calls the police as voices rise and tears fall, but not for Ethan. He hasn't broken anything. He's only revealed what was already broken. As officers arrive to restore order, Ethan steps aside, no longer part of the chaos. The truth has done its work. The courtroom strips everything down to facts, and Lena's story collapses under its own weight. Her emails, contracts, and recordings don't just expose deception, they establish intent. The judge's language is careful but firm, declaring the donor agreement coercive and ethically void. Marcus is ordered to pay child support, his regret now quantified into obligation. When Ethan is asked about paternity, the room holds its breath. He chooses to relinquish any parental claim, not because he doesn't care, but because consent still matters to him. The decision costs him more than anyone sees. He steps away from a future that could have been forced on him, and the grief hits later quietly in empty rooms and sleepless nights. But with the pain comes something clean. For the first time since the diagnosis, Ethan's life is his again. No lies, no borrowed identities, no role written without his permission. That Ethan's new apartment is small, almost bare, but honest. No shared history clings to the walls. He sleeps on a simple bed, cooks for one, and learns the way to silence without dread. Therapy becomes routine. Sessions where he finally speaks without strategy, letting anger and grief surface without judgment. Meanwhile, Lena's world shrinks. Friends stop calling. Online voices that once validated her choices disappear when reality demands accountability. The alpha fantasy she chased offers no comfort in courtrooms or quiet nights. She is left alone with the truth she tried to outrun, that entitlement is not empowerment and control is not love. Ethan doesn't celebrate her isolation. He doesn't need to. Healing isn't loud. It's a slow return of breath, the absence of fear, the ability to wake up without rehearsing survival. Over time, Ethan reconnects with parts of himself that had gone dormant. He volunteers with community mentorship program, helping kids who remind him uncomfortably of his younger self. Quiet, watchful, waiting for someone to stay. He doesn't offer speeches or lessons about strength. He shows up consistently. That becomes his quiet rebellion against everything he lost. In guiding them through homework and listening to their small fears, Ethan rediscovers worth untethered from biology or legacy. Love, he learns, isn't about passing something down. It's about showing up fully in the present. The betrayal no longer defines him. It informs him. As he walks home from the center one evening, the city lights soft around him. Ethan feels something unfamiliar but welcome. Peace without denial. He didn't win by destroying anyone. He won by refusing to become what hurt him. A year passes without ceremony. No milestones mark the change. Only the quiet accumulation of ordinary days survived. Ethan sits on a weathered park bench on a mild afternoon, hands folded loosely, watching children chase one another across the grass. Their laughter drifts without demand or expectation. He notices how his body no longer braces for impact, how the tightness that once lived between his shoulders is softened. This isn't happiness in the dramatic sense. It's steadiness. He thinks about how far he's come from that kitchen, that envelope, that silence he once used as armor. The park feels neutral, honest, unowned by memory. When a child stumbles and gets back up, Ethan smiles without thinking. It surprises him. Strength, he realizes, doesn't always announce itself. Sometimes it arrives so quietly you only notice it once the noise is gone. That evening, Ethan opened a letter with Lena's handwriting on the envelope. Careful, controlled, unmistakable. Her words move between apology and explanation, regret and justification. She says she's sorry for the pain, but not for wanting more. She blames fear, time, biology. She writes as if clarity absolves consequence. Ethan reads it once, slowly, then folds it back into its envelope. There is no anger left to fuel a response, no need to correct her version of events. Silence, once a strategy, has become a boundary. He understands now that closure doesn't come from being understood. It comes from choosing not to reopen wounds that have finally begun to scar. He places a letter in a drawer and closes it gently, like setting down something fragile that no longer belongs in his hands. The next morning, Sophia joins him on the same park bench, 2 coffees between them. They don't talk much. They don't need to. Their silence is companionable, earned through shared understanding rather than obligation. No future is implied, no promises made, just presence. Ethan watches the steam rise from his cup and thinks about how different this silence feels from the ones that nearly broke him. When Sophia stands to leave, she squeezes his shoulder once, grounding, respectful. Ethan remains on the bench as the sun dips lower, feeling complete without an audience. Inside, a final truth settles, not dramatic, not loud, but absolute. She wanted strength and blood. I found mine in walking away. The thought doesn't ache. It rests, And in that rest, the story finally ends.